Now that our trunk is completely dry, it is time to add some supports to the back of these trunk piece B's. So I'm calling that the back root B. So we're going to do that on each side, and what we need for that is to get out our template again, and first we'll cut 2 of these back root B's. 2 back root B's out of medium weight chipboard, and I've got those right here. And then we also need some out of medium weight chipboard. These are cut 1/4 inch long, just a couple of 12-inch strips. You'll need one for each of the roots. And then a strip of cardstock that is 1/4 inch wide that has a piece of 1/4 inch score tape on it. I just lay down a piece of 1/4 inch score tape and then cut on either side, and then I have just a piece of, we're just going to use this as to hinge some little pieces together. Okay, so that's the pieces that we need, and let's just check our measurements just in case you didn't cut things exactly as the template or went over the lines a little bit. The way these should fit in here is that if you hold trunk A out of the way a little bit, you should be able to see about a 1/16 of an inch, the width of the card of the chipboard, all the way around when you hold your back root B up against the front. And I'm going to just check on both sides, and mine look very good. So when I cut these templates out, I make sure that I cut, if I've drawn around them, that I cut so that I don't see that line, and then I usually have success. So I know that my pieces are correct, so I'm going to just put the trunk assembly aside for a few minutes, and we'll move on to working on the back roots. Now, it's important to remember to work in a mirror image. We'll create one, and then we would immediately create the other one, so that we make sure that we work in a mirror image. So let's get started. We are going to refer to the dimensions that are in green on the tree template. Now, if they're not showing up on green, you don't have a color printer. What we're looking at are the dimensions that are following along the root here on the trunk B portion. And what we want to do to start with is to take our 1/4 inch strip of chipboard and mark out these dimensions on that. So I'm just going to take my ruler right up against the edge, and I'm going to start with the 5.5 inch piece and measure that along here. Get my ruler oriented the correct way. There we go. 5.5. And it's pretty obvious that this one is 5.5, but I'm just going to mark it anyway. And then continuing along, I'm going to mark them in order. So the next one that I have is 3/8 inch, 3/8, then 1 1/4, then 3/4, another 3/4, and finally a 1 3/8. So just following right along, keep them in order there. We want to keep them in order because we're not going to cut them until we need them, and that way we don't lose any of these little pieces. So we'll cut the 5.5 inch piece to get started. We need that one. And then out of some of this strip that has the 1/4 inch score tape on it, let's just cut a couple of pieces so that when we're working we can just proceed along. I need one that's kind of longer, one at about an inch and a half, and then 3 that are about an inch or so to put this root together. It's not critical, but that's about what we need to get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece of the joining strip, and first we'll cut off the little 3/8 inch piece that's on the left here, and we'll just place that down about center in our strip. And if your cardstock joining strip is a little bit bigger, just try to keep all of one edge on either the top or the bottom aligned with that strip, because we can give it a little haircut later. And then on the left side of that, I'm going to put my 5.5 inch strip. I'm just going to keep everything aligned using a line on my cutting mat here. Trim that off a little bit. So what we're going to do, and we'll follow along on our template here, anytime that there is an angle that is less than 180 degrees or less than a straight line, we'll put the joining strip on the inside. So you can see right here that that one went on the inside. Now you can see that this next one is less than 180 degrees too. That just means it's less than a straight line. So if you're in doubt about it, if you hold your straight edge up against the line of that, you can see that it is there's space here, so that's less. So we'll cut off our next strip, which is 1.25 inches, and that one is also, I call them innies, and I'm going to just keep this aligned on my cutting mat here, and then give that a little haircut if it needs it. And I'm just scoring with my fingers for right now. I mean burnishing with my fingers. So now I'm just kind of working my way around here, and the next join is, you can see, is bigger than 180 degrees. And so what we want to do when it's bigger is we'll flip it over and we'll make the join on the other side. So I'm just flipped my little strip over, and I'm putting my joining strip right there. So it's on the opposite side. Hopefully you can see this. I know it's not. Let's see if I can come in a little bit here. So now I'm on the opposite side with my strip, and I'll cut off, the next one is a 3/4 inch, and I'll put that right down here. Give that a little finger burnish. And now you can see, I think, how we're following that along. So next time we're coming back in an inward angle. So what we'll do is, if we had the tape on the outside before, we'll put it on the inside this time. So just take one of these little strips, we're going to use this technique when we make the leaves as well. They have different widths. The strips aren't quite as small here as these 1/4 inch ones. And now I'm just going to add this little 3/4 inch one so that it has the join on the opposite side. Give it a little haircut. Let's see where we are. And we just have the last strip to do, which is the 1 3/8, and it is going on the opposite side of the last one. So we'll take our joining strip, put that on the opposite side, cut off our 1 3/8. Save that in case we need a little piece. Well, I'm always needing little pieces. Make that final join, and that one just needs a little haircut there. Alright, so now we have worked our way around, and we have something that can give our root the depth that it needs. So our next step is to glue this to our back root B. So let me get some patty paper and we'll prepare to do that. So I have my patty paper because I'm going to glue around this and I don't want to get glue on my board. And you might notice that I picked the root that is the opposite direction of this. It does not matter that when you built this strip, that you built it going this way. It can just as easily be flipped and be the one that goes around the root that's facing this way. So build both roots, build both of these strips the same way. Okay. The difference will come now when we attach them. One time we'll attach to the root in this position, and the next time we'll attach it to the root back in this position. Okay. So in order to attach this, what we want to do is run a bead of glue around the outside. For now, I want you to skip this top part, the last little 1 3/8 inch part that's up here. So we'll skip this part, but we'll put glue around all of these sides. There is no glue on this perpendicular edge at the back here. So just run a little bead of glue along the edge. Set that down and just use all your fingers to kind of bring that up around, and it should fit pretty nicely against all of your cut edges. Give it a little squeeze, and I like to pick it up before it gets too stuck to there. And then turn it over. Sometimes you can see better from the back side how it's doing. Remember, we have not attached this piece up here yet. Make sure everything is staying flat. This quick dry adhesive grabs pretty fast. Notice there's a piece hanging off the end here. That's intentional. So after that is set, it doesn't have to be perfectly dry, but it does need to be set. I want you to pick this piece up and look at this end over here. And on mine, the end of this loose piece is hanging over just a little bit. So what I want to do is just cut it off so that it is even with that back edge. And on mine I have to cut it off about 1/16 of an inch. So I've done that. And so now these ends are flush right here. The next thing we want to do is, while it is in this position and this is still open, we're going to cut a little wedge out of this piece. And the wedge we're going to cut out is angled back towards the back root A. So I'm going to just darken this in so you can see what it looks like. We're basically cutting off a little triangle there. Let's see that. So I'm just going to come in with my scissors and cut off this part that I've darkened. And now that I've got that cut off, I will glue that last piece on to the back of the root. So that what you end up with is a little wedge cut out, and you see which direction it's facing. It's facing back in towards the back of the chipboard. So you should have a little opening there. Now we're going to allow this to dry, and while that's drying, we'll make our mirror image, which we create the same way. Follow along our pattern over here to connect the strips, and just make sure that when you put them on, that you put them on with the root facing in the opposite direction of the one you just made. And then set both of those aside to dry thoroughly. You do not want to continue until they are dry thoroughly. I'm back. Both of my back root bees are thoroughly dry, so I'm ready to attach them to the back of the trunk. Now, before we glue them down, we want to do a little bit of trimming on trunk A, and you may be able to see that I've done it on this side. What we want to do is cut this at an angle down here. Let me slip this in here. And that angle is the same angle that is on the root. So if we put this, so we're looking at the finished side, and we take our pencil and we just draw a line along where those two are and cut that off, but leave the line. Okay, leave the line. And that should be the proper angle for the back root bees to fit into. So the way we attach these is just with a bead of glue. They sit on the top, the edges align. So whereas when we put the back roots in, it fit inside of the 1/4 inch. Now you will see that the trunk is going to sit on top of that unit. And this angle that we cut should come pretty close to what we need up here at the top. The goal is that when the tree trunk is coming around the building here, and it is 1/4 inch out, so that when we put this root in here, we want everything to be 1/4 inch out, so that's how the angle that piece A will be at. So in order to do that, I'm again just working on top of some patty paper, and I'm going to just run a bead of glue along all of these edges here, and then along the inside of the little angle that we just cut and glue our back roots to the front. Sometimes when I do this kind of construction, and you might see me do this when we do the leaves, is I'll put a little guide strip of chipboard in on the edges. I don't think it's necessary here, but you could always do that if you wanted to. And I forgot to put my glue up here. And I should also tell you that all of these edges that we're putting on here that will show will have finishing strips on them, so that if something doesn't meet exactly perfectly, you are not to get worried about that, because the finishing strips will come and help with that kind of a thing. I'm giving it a little squeeze. I'm going to put it in the vertical position here because I want to make sure that everybody is standing nice and tall, and then I can come and adjust. I can adjust this trunk A so that the edge meets the 1/4 inch of the, it doesn't go past where the 1/4 inch of the root is. It may not be at the precise angle to stay on there, but just it seems to be pretty good that following that design of the trunk gives it just about the right angle. So everything is flush on the inside here, both this angled piece of trunk A and the square cut pieces that of the root that we just added. So I've got that done on this side, and now I'm just going to repeat that process for the other side, let that dry, and then I'll be back. Our back root pieces are now thoroughly dry, and it's time to do some finishing of the edges. Now, some of this finishing we'll do now, and some will wait and accomplish once the tree gets attached to the slipcase. So what we need to get started, I have some pieces of dark brown cardstock here, and I have 2 that are cut at 1 3/8 by 8 inches long, and those 2 are scored at 3/8 inch. And then I've just added a strip of 1/4 inch score tape on that 3/8 inch side, and some extra score tape on the 1 inch side. And then we'll also need a couple of pieces that are cut 12 inches by 1 1/8, and those are scored every 3/8 inch or 3/8 and then 3/4. And I've just put a strip of 1/4 inch score tape in each channel on those. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is what I call taking out a little insurance, and I just have a dark brown marker here, and any places where I think I'm going to make some relief cuts, I'm just going to come along and put some dark marker on, just so that if anything does not meet properly, that we won't see any of the bare chipboard. So I'm just putting some in kind of these locations where there's some joints, and I'm going to do that on both sides so I remember. Just at any of these little breaks, and then I'm coming back about half an inch from where the joints are for between B and C, and that's where I'm going to stop this layer of finishing strips, so I put a little bit there. Okay, so now we're ready to get started. The first thing we want to do is take one of our strips that is cut 1 3/8, and we're going to use this to come along trunk A. Now what we're going to do is take and wrap this around this edge here, and we'll secure the 3/8 inch side to the inside. So I'm going to do that first, and I'm going to bring the corner of it right down into this corner here. And I'm going to add just a tad more ink right there. Right in that corner. Let me check this one. Yeah, right in that corner. Okay. So let's release this tape backing here. And I'm coming right down to that edge and then putting that 3/8 inch along the back. And I'm just going to give that a nice burnish before I continue. Now, we're going to wrap this around to the front, and when we do, obviously we're going to need to, let's give this a trim up here first. We might as well get rid of this excess. Okay. So, when we wrap this around to the front, we're going to need a release cut in order for it to sit properly there. So let's just take this score tape backing off. And we'll get this started around the edge. And then down here, I'm just kind of using the side of my thumb to press it into that little notch between the root and the side. And you can see that it wants to stand up here now. And so I'm just going to take my scissors and I can peek underneath here and see where that corner is. And now that I've made that cut, I can take part of it and go down this way. And then I can take the rest of it and it'll come up the edge. So let's do that. You don't want to burnish this totally flat because this does need to bend around this edge a little bit. So we'll get it in kind of a bent position. And probably we can just wait to totally burnish that until it's on the slipcase so that we get the right amount of bend there. Alright, so then we would repeat that on the other side, but it's the same thing, we'll just on the other side. So then now to work on the bottom part of this root, we're going to take our cardstock that we have that is the 1 1/8 that is scored 3 places. And first we want to do a little measuring. So we want to measure the front edge here from this corner that we had to the first kind of bend. So I'm making that measurement here, and on mine that is 1 3/8. So I'm just going to write that here so I don't forget. 1 3/8. And so I'm going to take my piece of cardstock that I have and my scoreboard, and I'm going to make a score at that point at 1 3/8. Okay. And then what we want to do is on the side where the 1 3/8 is, we're going to just make a cut that is only on up to the first score line. Now what we want to do is measure on the inside and see how long it is from the point where our finishing strip stopped to the first bend down here. And on mine, that is 3/4 of an inch. And so I want to measure on this strip on the opposite side down 3/4 of an inch. and I'm going to make a release cut there. Oops, I'm working on this side. I forgot what side I was working on. Then we're going to connect that second release cut that we had with the 3/8 inch point at the top. I'll make this cut and then I think you'll be able to see what I mean. So now this is what we have. Here's our bend at 1 3/8. It's 1 3/8 down that we measured the first time on the outside edge. Then we measured the inside and it was 3/4 of an inch. Made a release cut into the first score then, and then connected the points on the score lines. And so that will give us the cut we need to make this first finishing place here. Oh, I don't think I didn't, maybe I didn't make that release cut. Yeah, we need a release cut, I'm sorry, at the 1 3/8, we need that cut on both sides. So that's released on both sides. So now let's start pulling our score tape backing off. I'm just pulling all 3 pieces back, a few inches. Getting rid of these little guys up here. And where we have this bend, that's going to go into the first bend that we have coming down the root. And this channel should fit right on top of the root. So if I hold that back, I should be able to get it right in there. And then this piece that we cut should fit nice and neatly along that line there. And then we can secure both sides. See if I can get it up here so you can see what's going on here. So this is where we just secured it, here. Then we have the front channel there. And then here it's secured, this little tab right there on the back. And so what we're going to do now is just, you have to be careful not to attach anything prematurely, but holding the side channels up out of the way, you work your way down. So now I'm attaching the middle channel to the next section of the root and making a release cut right at that corner on both sides. Just kind of peeking in here, seeing where that corner is, and just cutting only up to that 3/8 inch channel in the front. And then I can secure that section. And I secured it on both sides. And then I can work my way down. And keep it centered. And what you're going to do is just keep making release cuts wherever there's the little angles on the root. And you make them on both sides. Secure them down. Okay, now we're down here towards the, I'm just going to give these guys a little haircut so they're not so much in my face. When we get to the small piece down here at the bottom, we'll still make release cuts. We might also have to cut some little wedges out because there's, this is only maybe a ½ an inch tall, and so there's probably not enough room for all of the cardstock to wrap around. So we'll start by doing our same thing. When we get to this corner, we'll make a release cut. on both sides. Then as we come down here to wrap this side, we can first make a cut that is coming in right to, I would say at a little, it's kind of an angle to the corner. I'm coming down at it. Because if I come straight in, it will align right with the base of the root. And this, if we put these two down, this is where, when we fold this back, you can see it's hanging over the edge, so we have to cut a little wedge out of there. So I would say I probably cut, a little bit more than a 45-degree angle out of there. Now, you notice I still have the score tape backing on here at this point, and that was deliberate because what I want to do is bring this around here to the front and measure how long it needs to be. I want to stop about a ½ an inch back from this join, and so I'm just, it's not critical that it's exactly a ½ an inch. I'm just coming and making a little tick mark there so that I can open this up and get my ruler and cut that off. And now I can remove the rest of my score tape backing. Bring that central channel around. And now we have a nice, neat, finished edge to our tree trunk so that when we go to put on our decorative paper, we'll have a nice finished edge. Now we're going to repeat these two steps on this side, and then we will wait to finish this section in the middle here until we join the tree to the slipcase, and at that point we'll also finish around the knot hole. Just a quick look at the finished sides here now that I've completed the other edge, so that you can see where you would be at this point.